Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. In last few videos we had been discussing accuracy of expression, and when we talk about accuracy of expression, accuracy means that you can produce, you can create, you can write a document that is error free. Now what are those errors? Those errors are punctuation errors, spelling errors and grammar errors. And in your writing paper, you have two questions. Question number 1 is directed writing task, in which there are 15 marks for accuracy of style of your writing. In the same manner, in second question, that is composition question, you are going to be assessed for accuracy of writing, that is grammar, punctuation and spelling. So we need to take care of these things if we want to get a good grade in English 1123. Now in accuracy of expression, in this series we are going to discuss all these three things. We'll be discussing spelling, we'll be discussing grammar, but now after last two videos we are discussing punctuation. In punctuations, the most important punctuation marks are as follows. Now I hope you remember all those. We have full stop, comma, semicolon, question mark, exclamation mark, apostrophe, speech marks, colon, and we have, yes, these are, how many of them are there? 1 2 3 4, these are 8 actually. We had discussed this full stop in the previous video, and today we are going to discuss use of comma. I think after full stop and question mark, comma is that kind of punctuation mark that is used a lot, and I must say that it is as common as punctuation mark or question marks are. So what different uses this comma has, and how you can use it accurately? If your punctuation is not accurate, if its use is not accurate, do not dream of getting good grades in English language. So you need to master it. The following are the main occasions when commas should be used. The first 6 are purely mechanical, the other 2 require a little more thought. First one is, now let's have a look at the first one. First one is to separate words or phrases in a list or series, except for the last two, which are usually joined by and. Now let's have a look at this. For example, in the kitchen there were a large oven. Now look at this. There are a series of things. I think this is the most common use. Most of the students, they know this use, they are aware of this use. They can use the comma wherever they have a list of things. So that is the most common use, and you all can use it very well. Let's have a look at this. In the kitchen there were a large oven, one thing, pots, comma, pans, comma, bottles, comma, glasses, comma, and a stand containing cutlery. These are the things, because that is a series of things, that is a list of things. That's why we have separated them with the help of a comma. Now remember one more thing, that here they have told you that there is no need to put a comma where, like let me write it like this: glasses, and after glasses I am not putting a comma because I have a conjunction and here. But in today's modern English you can put a comma even here also. This comma that you put before and, that is called Oxford comma. That is called Oxford comma, and these days its use is very common. So if you want, this is your own choice. In conventional and traditional English, we were told by our teachers that you should not put a comma before and. But these days the use of comma before and is very common, and if you want to use it, you can. There's no harm in that, and that is called Oxford comma. That is the first use, that we use it in a series of things to separate a list of things. That is the first most common use of comma. Second one, to mark off the name or the title of a person being spoken to. For example, Padma. Now that is the name of a person. Like if we can have a name, let's say we have a name, very common and easy name, that is Ali. If we are talking about, if we are writing a name, we will put a comma after that. We will put a comma after that. And Padma, there's someone at the door to see you. Or whenever you write excuse me, put a comma after excuse me. Sir, put a comma after sir. You've just dropped your wallet. So basically there are two sentences. Padma, there's someone at the door to see you. Full stop. Second sentence, or excuse me. Whenever you use excuse me, you are going to put a comma after that. Excuse me, sir, you have just dropped your wallet. So you need to remember that whenever you write the name of a person, you are going to put a comma after that. Whenever you are going to write excuse me, you are going to put a comma after that. Whenever you are going to write sir, madam in your sentence, you are going to put a comma after that. Then comes the third use, that is the third one, to mark off words or phrases in opposition. What is opposition? For example, the restaurant owner. Now this is one thing, the restaurant owner, comma, and what is the name of that person? Mr. Mia, comma, is a very rich man. Whenever you write the name of a person and then you write his designation or what does he do or who he is, you are going to introduce that person. You will separate those phrases with a comma after them. The restaurant owner, comma, Mr. Mia, comma, is a very rich man. Or Mr. Mia, comma, the restaurant owner, comma, is a very rich man. You are going to separate them with the help of a comma. And remember, this is not something that you should take light. This is something that you need to be taken care of. And if you do not take care of all these things, you cannot improve your writing style, you cannot improve your accuracy. Now the fourth one. Then fourth one is to mark off words and phrases such as however, therefore, by the way, nevertheless, moreover, etc. We talk about these phrases. They are also called time markers. They are also called transition words. I think my students know that we had been discussing them with this name, transition words. And these are the transition words that we use in our summary writing and in directed writing. And we use them very frequently. If you don't know the use of transition words, that means you cannot write a continuous summary, you cannot write a continuous text, or you cannot write joined different ideas together. So transition words are very important. And remember, whenever you write transition words, you are going to put a comma after that. However, comma. Therefore, comma. By the way, comma. Nevertheless, comma. Moreover, comma. And like this. That have been interjected into a sentence. For example, at the same time, comma. However, comma. You should be very careful. So whenever you are going to use these in your writing, you will put a comma. I think that is an easier one. You can remember that easily, that whenever I am using transition word, I have to put a comma after that. So remember that, right? Then the fifth one, to mark off phrases beginning with a participle when a pause is required in the reading. For example, my sister, seeing that I was upset, asked me what was the matter. Remember one thing, that comma shows a pause in your writing, a pause in your conversation, a pause in your speaking. So whenever you put a comma, that means you need to stop there. While saying that, while reading that, you need to stop there. Like if I say, my sister seeing that I was upset asked me what was the matter, doesn't make any sense. My sister seeing that I was upset asked me what was the matter. It does not make any sense. If the comma is there, I need to stop there. I need to pause there. Pause is a stop that is for just a little moment. Like my sister, seeing that I was upset, pause. Ask me what was the matter. So such phrases in which you need to pause for some time, you are going to put a comma after such phrases, and usually they are beginning phrases. Now here you can see there are two phrases that need a comma after that. Number 6. In conjunctions with speech marks to indicate the beginning of a passage of direct speech. If you are going to, and that is also common for all the students, they know this when they do this quotation, when they do this direct, indirect, they know that when they have written this, the teacher stood up and said. After that, you are going to start something with that you are going to write in the speech marks like this, and before said you are going to put a, after said you are going to put a comma. The teacher stood up and said, let's go out. So this is quotation mark. Whenever we use quotation marks or speech marks, basically we are trying to tell that these are words of a person as they are spoken by that person. So the first one, the teacher stood up and said, this is the reporting speech, right? So we put a comma after the reporting speech, before starting the reported speech, right? So reported speech is written in quotation marks, whereas the reporting speech is written before that, and we put a comma after said or requested or whatever the word that is written there. Okay, next one is the seventh one. There are 8 uses of a comma. Okay, now the seventh one, to separate an adjectival clause beginning with who, whom, or which from the rest of the sentence when it is non-defining. This is particular, and that is, this is a particularly tricky use of comma, but the following example will help to explain the point. The queen ordered that all the birds, comma, which were sitting on the wall, comma, should be fed. So I'm not going to explain that sentence because that will become, definitely they have told us that this is tricky, so it will become too difficult for you to understand. So we will discuss this when we are going to do phrases and clauses. There I'll explain this in detail. But remember, for this, when you have different phrases in a sentence or different clauses in a sentence, we separate them and we put a comma to separate them. Like the queen ordered that all the birds. And here the meanings of the sentence can get changed if you put a comma on a different place, if you put a comma, if you do not put a comma there and you read the sentence without that, the meaning of the sentence will be totally different. We will discuss it when we are going to do clauses and phrases. So you just remember these things, that when you have a very long sentence, you need to divide these sentence into different or separate those clauses or phrases with a comma. The queen ordered that all the birds, comma, which were sitting on the wall, comma, should be fed, full stop. That is seventh use, that we separate different clauses that can, not just adjectival clause, that can be relative clause, that can be any other clause also. So we will discuss them in detail. Then the last point is to break up a sentence into smaller parts and to help the reader to grasp the meaning. Now that's quite interesting. Okay, now when you want to, when you, there was a, I think if I remember correctly, we were doing a question in C2, and there was a question that why the writer has used short sentences. There was something like that, and we came up with an answer that because the writer wanted to create some kind of suspense or drama in his answers, that's why he used that. So when we are to break up a sentence into smaller parts to help the reader to grasp the meaning, when we want our reader to go to walk with us, to read with us, to read or think, understand things with us, we divide or we separate those sentences with putting commas there. In that way, the reader can understand that better. Now look at this. For example, Ajay, clumsy and awkward, stumbled into the room. knocked over a small table, and then, before he could do any more damage, sank into the nearest chair. Now, by putting a comma, we have made this sentence a wonderful sentence for the reader to enjoy it and to understand it, both the things. If we just read it like this, Ajay clumsy and awkward stumbled into the room, knocked over a small chair, and then before he could do anything, any damage, sank into the nearest chair. There is no there's no use of comma there, then we cannot understand it basically what the writer is trying to say. But when we put a comma after a few certain words, we make it understandable for the reader. Ajay, clumsy and awkward. That means we are describing Ajay. Stumbled into the room, knocked over a small table, and then, before he could do any more damage, sank into the nearest chair. That's all. So now this was the use of comma, that previously we have done full stop, now we did comma, and tomorrow inshallah we are going to do colon and semicolon. We will do that in detail, and just try to do one thing, that keep reading. Readers are our leaders, and if you keep reading your summer vacation, definitely you are going to improve your English also. So you can read Reader's Digest, you can read any novel that you like, you can read all the lessons in your book, you can read newspaper, you can read children magazines, but keep on reading. Definitely that is going to improve your English. That's all for today. Allah Hafiz, take care.